another episode of Every Day is a New Day. My name is Kim O'Neill, and as you can see, today I'm wearing a headset. Going with the flow here. So today my guest is Sonya Arias, and she does a whole bunch of awesome things. Today we're going to talk about, though, family constellations. Sonya is a family constellations facilitator, and I've had the pleasure of experiencing going through a family constellations. I don't even know what you'd call it, so we'll have to ask Sonya, but going through a session. It was very powerful. It's deep work. It's really awesome. And so with that said, let's talk to Sonya and hear more about it. So, hi, Sonya.
Hi, Kim. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Well, will you tell us a little bit more of, what is family constellations?
Family constellations is a form of therapy that we use, a modality that we use to help people really unearth the root cause of the issues. And sometimes that root cause of their issue, it started 2, 3, or 4 generations back. So we look at not just the individual, but the family dynamics in an entire system, so that it really that issue can be liberated from the very depth of the root cause, not only right here on the surface.
So it sounds like you help people be able to eliminate patterns that just continue within families generation after generation.
Yes, eliminate patterns, negative emotions, sometimes even illnesses.
Wow.
We look at some things are very easy to see, like alcoholism. So it's the son is alcoholic, the dad was an alcoholic, the grandfather was an alcoholic. So that's easy to see. Some things are much more obscure and unconscious, like the death of the third child. We don't really look at it like consciously someone would want that to happen, but the patterns get set in a very unconscious level, or even on the DNA, the trauma is passed on from one generation to another. And so here we are 3, 4, 5 generations, maybe even 7 generations later, and we have anxiety, pain, a source of discomfort that didn't really start with us, started way back. And so family constellation serves to look at where it started, to unearth it. I look at it like a bubble of energy that's trapped. And we sort of connect to that frequency. We react to that energy that's trapped. And it's been lived through generations. So when we do family constellations, we go all the way back and sort of pop that bubble. It's deep, it's work. Because as a client, you do your work, but then that energy dissipates little by little. And as a result, not only you, but even often enough, members of your family start behaving differently, start having different outcomes.
Wow. Okay, so I have a question. I might edit this out if it sounds too silly. When I hear the term constellation, I think of like the stars and astronomy, astrology, all that kind of stuff. And I haven't been able to really understand how that term fits in with the family work that you're doing. Will you explain that?
Yes, that's the issue everybody has, including me, with it. We think as far as like, what is that going to be? She's going to work out the zodiac signs, or it's not at all. It comes from Germany. This work originated in Germany. And apparently constellation has different meanings in Germany than they do here. So, it was supposed to depict that the way that the stars cluster together, you have a cluster of stars here and there, that it was supposed to depict that the families get also grouped together by their entanglements or their patterns or dynamics. I would say the best title or name for this would be healing movements at a soul level. That really, when I say healing movements at a soul level, that really is what constellation is all about. The work is so deep that it goes beyond mentally what you can understand, emotionally what you can feel, physically, the pain that you carry, into movements at a soul level that bring about peace and resolution. And you shift, you change. Some people come to me saying, like my mother, that woman, right? And he's saying, like, that woman, I want nothing to do with her. And that's why I moved 5,000 miles away. And when they leave connected to the love they had in their heart. It's so level, you know, we connect back to the love we have for everyone in our family. You know, when you were little, you loved your parents, right? When you're little, you love your parents, no matter what they do. And so to connect back to that innocence in a different way, to that like love at a deep level, brings you healing, regardless of if that woman's still that woman or not.
What started you in this line of work?
I went through a divorce, and as a result, I went to get some therapy. That sort of started my personal development. And I was going to school to become a therapist, but I was also looking for spiritual venues or places where I could meditate and grow in a different way as well. And then I ran into someone who invited me to a Family Constellation workshop. And I got to tell you, my first reaction is like, no way in hell. Like when I went and they were there, I was like, people can't do this. It's too fast. Because I had like therapy, like regular psychotherapy in mind. It's too fast. You can't do this to them. You have to walk them, you know, little by little. But then I came back because I was sort of triggered by it, but amazed by it at the same way, at the same time. So I came back, and then I was able to see the healing effects, and I fell in love with it.
Wow. I think that's interesting how things come into our lives sometimes, and we're not as open to it, and we just say, no, no, no. And then life shifts, right? And then it resurfaces, and now we're able to see it with fresh eyes and see the possibilities.
Yeah.
Wow.
I fell in love with that, and I feel that out of everything that I do, this is the one tool that I love the most.
Wow. Would you be open to sharing a little bit more of some of the other things that you do?
Yes, I am a life coach. You know, I am a certified life coach. I do hypnosis, neuro-linguistic programming. I do energy work like Reiki or access bars. I'm also an intuitive, so I'm able to help people move through certain places where they're stuck more on a surface level by giving them guidance.
So it sounds like, I mean, yeah, you've definitely got a lot of tools that would help someone with their family issues and be able to shift energy and see what needs to maybe be reworked or released.
Right. Yes, and I sometimes like people get a little resistant because see, we look at our patterns as loyalties. We're very loyal to them. We have patterns in this family. We're loyal to being single parents, even though we don't want it. Right, even though we don't want it. So some of the other tools for me serve to start sort of breaking that resistance and to get them into the deep work that's really going to transform their lives. Family Constellations is not the one thing and the only thing that's going to help everyone, but it's very helpful. And then once they break the patterns, then I use hypnosis or neuro-linguistic programming to set some different skills now, like a different skill set. You know, in order for people to move forward in an easier, more comfortable way.
Now, I know when I had my session with you, one of the things that came up was birth order. And I don't know if that comes up in every session, but would you talk a little bit about how birth order can have an impact on patterns?
Yes, we call it a rightful order. So we look at family constellations, those who come first. They come first. Like when we look at universal love sequence, 1 comes before 2, 2 comes before 3, 3 comes before 4. So those who, if there is disruption and those who came before us, then we feel that disruption if we come later. And sometimes what we do is, like for instance, I'll give you an example because it's easier by example to try to explain it. I was born, I'm number 10 as far as children.
Wow.
Yes. So my oldest sister was raised by my grandmother as her daughter. So my mom was young in Mexico and high class society kind of. And so those things went back in those days. You didn't speak of those things. So she had a daughter and then my grandmother raised her as her daughter. And we didn't know. I ended up knowing when I was 12. that she was my sister and not my aunt.
Oh, wow.
So the rightful place for her is as the firstborn, the oldest. Well, actually, for me in my system, as my oldest daughter, right? My oldest sister.
Right.
You know, and so growing up in a lot of aspects, I behaved, and that's what we call the loyalties. I behaved like the oldest, always wanting to take care of everybody. I always wanted them to do what I was telling them to do, being upset if somebody told me, you're the youngest, you have to listen. I would be so upset and behave so much like, I'm the oldest. I have the right to tell you what to do, sort of thing. But also there was this yearning for something more. Like I remember when I was little, I knew my parents were my parents, but I sometimes would lay at night thinking, like, I wonder if I have a different set of parents, right? And that's, I would think that, like, they made a mistake at the hospital, like something like that. But then I love my parents, and then I would think, no, well, maybe not, especially my mom. I was more connected to mom than to my dad. Then I would think, no, like maybe I'm just my mother's daughter, but not my father's.
Wow.
Those emotions were really not my emotions, but I was connected to them by honoring my older sister, which that was her case. She is my mother, but he's not my father. And so I had that yearning for a set of parents that were far away somewhere, and they were going to come and take me home. It wasn't really mine. It felt like mine. And I didn't know. I was 4, 5, 6 years old. And I remember thinking, like, I wonder when they're going to come. And even thinking a complicated solution that, my mother, my father's mom cheated on dad, not the whole concept of that, but even going to that. So the rightful order is, as long as she's missing, someone's missing in that rightful space, the rest of the children or relatives that come later could, not everyone, but one or two or, more than one could stand in their place unconsciously as if to say someone's missing here. So that person can be included in all levels, energetically, emotionally, physically, mentally. Like just knowing the truth releases so much. Does that make sense?
I think so. I wanted to ask, a couple questions. So you were raised by your grandmother, or my
sister was raised by my grandmother.
And then who are you raised by?
My parents, both my mom and dad.
Okay, so even though you were raised by your parents, though, you took on that story that must have been playing for your sister.
Yes. So we look at that. I didn't sit there. I didn't know she was only my half sister. I didn't know she was my sister. Period. I thought she was my aunt. That's how we grew up believing until I was 12. But younger than that, on a very unconscious level, I was so in tune with her because she's missing from her rightful place. She came first. So then I would sort of take on unconsciously certain characteristics of the oldest one. Uh-huh. And emotions that were, they had no other explanation. They had no real explanation. We have unconscious ties to them. To sort of remember them and include them in the system. The premise of Family Constellation is that everyone belongs in the family system. And those who we exclude intentionally or unknowingly, then we seek to include them in other ways. And that's what we call loyalties.
And it sounds like that then can also be applied to families who have an abortion or maybe a stillbirth that occurred somewhere in the family pattern?
Yes. And so those who come later are going to feel it even more because when we look at it, they're missing. So if they're not talked about or if they're not recognized, mostly if the emotions, if there's trauma that hasn't been moved through.
Okay.
If there's trauma. If it was everything is fine, everybody's fine in all levels, then there's no disruption.
Right.
But mostly, and when we look at like the rejection, it could be unconscious rejection or not knowing. I didn't know she was my sister. Right? I didn't know she was my sister, and yet I carried those emotions unconsciously. So I didn't know, and I didn't sign up consciously. I'm going to go act like my sister, or have those feelings like my sister. We do that so unconsciously. So here we come and we do everything we can let's say, I'm depressed or I'm sad. I miss my mom and my mom's right there, right? And so I could go to therapy. I could do many things. But if that's not the root cause, it's only going to alleviate a problem on the surface. So when we really go down into the depth and I'm able to see and understand it and feel it, then I can, that trauma is in a way, it's not necessarily healed because you can't go back and heal the past, but it doesn't get stuck in the unresolved emotions. Those emotions are expressed in a session. Then the moves.
It sounds like by allowing those either people, I guess it would always be people, allowing those people that were in the family, whether, they were ever in a human form, or maybe it was a stillbirth or whatever, by acknowledging it and allowing them to be seen, that's how the healing comes through.
Yes. And it's including, we call them including them. We include them consciously. And then the emotions of the trauma that were unresolved, they also get expressed in the session.
Nice. Okay, so I know
there's sort of like a few steps. First is acknowledging what it is.
Okay.
And there's the expression, all those emotions, for the most part, negative emotions. As human beings, we cut off from them. It's too much. So life needs to go on. And it's a defense mechanism, self-preservation. And so we acknowledge what it is or what happened. Because sometimes it's an event that happened. It's not just about the people. Acknowledging what is, expressing those trapped emotions per se, and then accepting that that's how it was. That's what happened. With that comes peace and resolution. We don't change the past, but the present changes as a result of that.
Now, I know that when I had my session with you, it was in person. Are all sessions in person, or do you ever do distance? Can this be done distantly?
It could be done distantly. I haven't done constellations, let's say, over Skype or Zoom or anything like that. But I do constellations for people who are in other states or countries. And so I mostly do them during workshops.
So it sounds like when you're doing a live workshop with other people, you include those other people who aren't present into the healing.
Into the healing. And we do a constellation for them. So somebody will represent the person and other people will represent the issue, and then it unfolds right in front of our eyes. And the beauty of it is that, again, they don't have to be present and they still feel the ramifications of it. And even we do the work for us. As a client, I do the work. I facilitate for their issues. More often than not, the family members or the other people who are involved that were not present during the session also benefit from it. And they never know it.
And that's something I thought was really interesting, but I loved about it is because, it's like, even if you've got, say, a family of 4 people who could probably all use healing, but maybe there's only one person that's actually open to the healing. And if they go do a family constellation session, you actually have other people who are also part of the session that represent those family members who aren't there. Is that right?
Only if it pertains to the client.
Okay.
Let's say as a family member, you have an issue with your mom or with your sister, but it's about you, the healing, it's about you, then we do the work, we do the process. We don't do the process when people come and say, my sister screwed up, can you fix her? And she's not there. Like, it doesn't work.
So basically you're saying how, we can't change other people. It's always about us and our healing, regardless of what other people.
Right. And what I'm also saying is when we do our work, other people may change. And we do the work for us, for the client, not for the other people. We do it for the client, but others benefit as well as a result.
Good point. Yeah. And so about how long does a session last?
Every session is different, but I would say it could be as short as 15 minutes when something is so ready to come up and the people are open, a little bit more open.
Okay.
Sometimes it could be an hour and 20 minutes. It depends. But there's tremendous amount of healing that happens in those 15 minutes or in the hour and a half. It depends. The more people are familiar with family constellations, the more the issues ready to be accepted, the easier and quicker it goes.
And I think, will you explain the different roles? Because I think, isn't there like maybe an observer role and a participant role or something like that?
So when we do a workshop, people have 3 options. They can come as the client, and the client says, I have this issue, this is what's going on, and I want healing on that particular issue. People can come as a participant. As a participant, you come to participate in the client's process. There might be 1 to 3 clients, or if it's an all-day workshop, 10 clients. So there, as a participant, you come to participate, not necessarily with your own issue. We don't open up, we don't work with you, but in every session for every client, if you're participating, it's also helping you with your personal stuff and your family stuff as well. And then there's the observer role, which, it's basically a participant who chooses not to participate, who's going to sit there and watch all the processes, but there's no non-participant person, because even if you sit there and observe, it's still moving through you and your family system. It really is, it opens up what we call the morphic field, where everyone is connected. And so you cannot help but to receive some healing by being there. That's it. And so you can choose, like everybody's open, you can say, no, I don't want to step in and participate. I can just observe. I've been all of them, the facilitator, the client, the participant, and the observant. And one time, one of the most profound healings for me happened as an observer.
Oh, wow.
The constellation and touched me so deeply. So much moved through that. Yeah. So there's no escaping healing. You come around the work, there's no escaping it.
And where do you offer these sessions? If someone wanted to come to an in-person session, where do you offer these sessions right now?
Well, the workshops, I'm doing them in 2 different places. I do in Orange County, and I do them in Claremont, which is right at the border of LA and the Inland Empire. LA and San Bernardino County. As far as individual work, I do work in Claremont as well. I do work in Torrance, and I do work in Orange County as well.
Have you ever had any people come back to you and tell you about the shifts that this workshop has had on their life?
Yes, plenty of times. One of the things is, when we do this work, it's always with the understanding that it starts in that moment, and some things will shift right away. You know it. But it continues to. It's like we plant the seed and it continues to grow. So sometimes people are not aware of how much they've changed. Like I had this one girl, and she came and she was in a relationship, and the relationship was abusive, and she wanted to leave, but she couldn't. She kept going back, and it had been months going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and that was her issue. When we did the constellation, mother issues came up.
Oh.
And it was very healing for her. When she left, she said, like, well, I'm not so sure. I know, she's like, I wanted to work on that, and this came up, and I'm so glad, she's like, it came up because it's something that was there, and I feel so much better. And thank you so much. And then she left, right? And I ran into her, talked to her about 4 months later, and she talks about the boyfriend. And I'm like, what? So she previously had been with a woman, and now she's talking about her boyfriend. So her relationship had ended, the one that she wanted to. So her relationship had ended. And I still didn't want to, because their work is their work. And I know that it's done, right? But she still hadn't connected the dots. And then later we talked about it. And then months later, she says like, oh, did I tell you I'm engaged? Right? And then that's when we looked at it, that's when I said, I remember your constellation. And she's like, oh, that's right. She's like, oh, that's right. So a lot of the times, the way that we're unconsciously entangled with members of our family, we don't know it. And also, there's so much resolution that comes from it that most of the times we're not aware of either, until something like that happens. I know I did a couple constellations, and one day I remember I was like, this is the result of that one constellation that I had, a year ago or something, or 2 years ago. I think for her, by the time she was engaged, I want to say it was about, like a year and a half, from when she came to see me to the time she was telling me she was engaged.
So tell me what is most important about this work.
The most important thing about this work is that it brings you back to love, to your unconditional love for the people that you were connected in a different way. And it also teaches, understanding. When you see other people, it's not, then you realize it's whatever they have, whatever triggers they have, and it's not personal. So it's more than what issue you're going to heal here in this moment, but it gives you a greater understanding of humanity as at its best and its worst and its most vulnerable space, so that before what used to trigger you, now you can see where the pain is and you're able to understand and have, I guess, better relationships with everyone, not just with your family, but with yourself and others.
Well, and also I think, what I'm learning, just hearing you talk about it too, is about how when we don't do either family constellations or maybe other healing work, we don't just, okay, I'm going to, move 5,000 miles away and get away from the problem. We take it with us. It doesn't matter where we go. If we can see the person or not, we take it with us unless we choose to heal it and release it.
Right. Yeah, that's it. And, I go from one spectrum to the other one. I do Reiki, and who doesn't love Reiki? You come and you lay and it feels so good and there's no work done. But I think the family constellation in a way is a little bit for the brave, the ones that are really to sort of gut themselves out and go into that. But trust me, one session can change your life drastically. And I love Reiki, don't get me wrong. I love Reiki and I practice it every day. But one Reiki session isn't going to do as much. The way that I look at it is like, we got you out, right? We go to the depth of it. And then we give some skills with NLP and life coaching and all that. And then we wrap it up in a bubble of Reiki or energy work, and then you're complete. But even if you don't get to the other two steps, to me, that's where the trauma is. Most people are stuck in the reptilian brain, the fight flight. And that it completely affects it and sort of constricts our actions and reactions in life, the way we look at life. If you want a more expansive life, you have to move from the reptilian brain into the creativity part of who we are, to be a little woo-woo-ish into your highest self, your divine self. And that is the reptilian brain.
I know from the session that I had, which was a long time ago now, so I don't remember everything, but I do remember there were some things that came up that I didn't see, I didn't anticipate coming up, but I think that that's really cool too, because, if there's anyone out there thinking, yeah, this sounds interesting, it might be able to help me, but, well, I don't know, I don't know this other thing about what was in my mom's background or my dad's background, maybe you don't know these things. You don't have to. It's like they somehow float to the surface in one way or another and come through anyway, just based on whatever you yourself can bring to the workshop.
Right. And that's the beautiful thing. You don't have to know all of the details. You come and you sit there, and I, as a facilitator, I don't do the work. I just read the people, and I have a greater understanding, so I'm able to push and move and lead the people into their own healing. But things come up. We open up that field where everybody is connected, and whatever's been stuck in the system will come up for healing.
Nice. I've seen a few other family constellations facilitators out there, but I'm not really sure how many people are out there doing this kind of work.
Not as many as I wish. It's starting to be a little bit more. It's more. There are a few more out in the Inland, not the Inland Empire, LA area. Okay. It's a little bit more known. Here in Orange County, it's probably a handful. Now I see more people. There's a handful that I notice, like 5 or 6 people. There's not that many. This is something great to add if you're doing any kind of healing, coaching, therapy, anything that helps, people, even counseling. if you're working with kids, this is something that can be used in so many forms. One time I was talking to someone, it's a friend of mine, we're at a restaurant having dinner and utilizing forks and spoons and salt and pepper shakers, we're able to do a family constellation for her. And to this day, she will tell me, I'm so grateful. You don't know how much. She was on the verge of getting divorced. And
she was on the verge of what?
Getting divorced.
Okay. Wow.
And it wasn't about the issues between them. It was the unconscious loyalty to the family system, the single mom in her system. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and if there's someone that clearly you're able to help people wherever they are, whether it be in Southern California or if they live somewhere else, if they want to be included into a workshop. But if there's someone that doesn't live in the Southern California area and they would love to do an in-person workshop, is there a website that has maybe a list of other facilitators?
Not that I'm aware of. But if they Google Family Constellations and if the area, it'll come up.
Okay.
Most part, some of the other facilitators, the ones who I've been doing it longer to, they travel to different states, to different countries, and they do workshops. It's kind of that circuit. Now it's beginning to be a little bit more stable for some people where they have their practice in Orange County or LA, and that's what they do. But before that, I was trained by facilitators from other states and from another country. So they would go to places. So there's still many facilitators who are doing that. They're going all over the place, doing workshops and doing trainings. Okay.
And if someone wanted to get in contact with you, what would be the best way for them to reach out to you?
My website, it's Sonya, SONYA, Arias, ARIAS.com. My phone number is 909-717-0543. Okay. And address is Sonya@SonyaArias.com.
Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Just that whatever they're paying to know that there are solutions, there are places, not just with me, with you, and the people they know, but if they look for assistance, they can find it. And it's just moving through it. I remember thinking, gosh, when I was going through a divorce, it was painful. I wanted the divorce, but it was so painful and it was so different than my family because my family, all of them were married, right? And so it was so different. I was so lost. And it took somebody to say, like, maybe you should look at counseling. Because before that, I would say, like, oh, counseling is only for the ones who are screwed up, right? Yeah, it's for others, not me. I'm not screwed up. But anyway, it's not because people are screwed up. It's because you're in pain and you want something different, and we get stuck in what we know, and to go into something different, sometimes a little help goes a long way. And these things.
Yeah, and I am a huge advocate of counseling, but I can identify with some of that mentality, because I think when you think of yourself as a strong, capable, competent person, you think that, oh no, I can work through something on my own. I don't need help. I don't need someone else telling me how to live my life or whatever. That's not what it is. Anyway, so I completely agree. Counseling and therapy and all these healing modalities and family constellations, all of it serves to help all of us find ease with life, because we're all going to come against things that are painful and challenging. And so.
Yeah, reach out in whatever form you can. Reach out and ask for assistance or for direction. And trust me, you'll be pointed in the right direction.
Yes.
When I was going through my stuff, there's no way in hell I would have touched family constellations. It was too out there, too scary. So I started with what I started. It was counseling. Then I opened up to meditation. And then started moving through things. And not one modality, not one way of self-help is right for everybody, and not one is right for you throughout your lifetime. And there are going to come different ones. But to me, it's like, be brave and ask for help.
I love that. Be brave and ask for help. I love it. Well, Sonya, thank you for being here today. I'm gonna ask you if you want to do one more thing. Would you like a message?
What is that? Like for you to give me a message?
It's just something fun. It's kind of a secret at first, but would you like to say yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Choose 1 through 6.
5.
Okay. Now choose 1 through 223.
149.
Okay, and tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay, so I have a stack of books next to me, a stack of 6 books, and I just think this is fun because we can see how things line up and everything. And anyway, the book that you chose, number 5, you chose was Small Miracles.
Awesome.
And it says Extraordinary Coincidences from Everyday Life. And it doesn't actually have chapters, so I just gave you all the pages. 149, my fingers stopped. I'm going to start at the beginning of the paragraph and just read the paragraph. It says, so it looks like a little short story. I felt overwhelmed with shame and remorse at my callous behavior the day before, at my lack of compassion for my mother. But perhaps I was not entirely to blame. Perhaps I had not really understood how oppressive the heat could be. I had finally gotten a glimmer of what she had been experiencing when my own air conditioning broke down. And, oh my gosh, that actually connects to
Constellations, yes.
I love this. I love doing this. Okay, so anyway.
The last thing I would say is a lot of the times the healing comes because you're able to understand what others have been in their pain and suffering. So your heart softens. And it opens up. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So, yeah, I know. It was perfect, wasn't it? That was awesome.
Yeah.